Hey, good Saturday afternoon, 540-0580. If you have a legal question, want to get it answered here on the air, you call 540-0580. Haven't been on the air with you guys in a while, so I apologize. A little busy with these deer I've been chasing around. Of course, I was on Black Friday, and then I was hunting in Maryland last Saturday. Did shoot a buck, so if you go to my Facebook page, I actually have that up as my profile pic right now. So if you want to see the deer I shot in Maryland, decent 8-point, actually better than decent 8-point. I don't want to brag, but it was pretty good, a little bigger than the one I shot in New York. And just when I thought I was the world's best hunter, along came the Pennsylvania opener, and I saw exactly 0.0 deer on the opener. So obviously, I must have been lucky the other two times. That's the best I can tell you. 540-0580. Call with your legal questions. I'll answer them here on the air. As you know, I'm Carl Rominger. I'm an attorney here in the Mid-State. Just to update you guys, I did open up a Lancaster County location in downtown city of Lancaster. It's on West Chestnut Street, down by the Gallery Row there. So you call the same 800 number. You contact us the same way through weekendappointment.com. And we're going to be staffing it down there a few days a week where if you make an appointment, we'll have somebody down there, a lawyer, to meet with you. We also have a translator on staff who goes between the Lancaster office and the Chambersburg office. So for those of you who don't know, we have a Chambersburg office as well, Carlisle, Chambersburg, and now Lancaster. We'll also meet with you in Harrisburg by appointment, but that's got to be for something more than just a 10-minute consultation. Use the telephone for that. But we do have a Lancaster County location. So if you've refrained from hiring us in the past because you didn't want to drive all the way up to the beautiful city of Carlisle, you can now do it in the convenience of your own neighborhood in Lancaster. So I just want to make sure everybody knows about that. Fred.
Yes, sir.
How are you today?
I didn't see any deer either.
Well, where are they hiding?
I don't know. I don't think there's any up in Center County.
Well, I don't know, but I can tell you that there's a lot of deer on the farm where I hunted, and I didn't see any of the corner I hunted, but I did one of these things where the night before I took a buddy down who was going to hunt with me, and I showed him the lay of the land. Yeah. We ran into some young guys who were going to hunt, and we're coordinated, we were going to hunt, and they're like, well, we're going to hunt, unless you want to hunt it, we're going to hunt down this one field down here. And I said, oh, I hunted there last year. I didn't see anything. Well, they shot a big buck and a doe between the two of them by about 8:15. And I said to my buddy, I'm like, go figure. Last year, not a deer stepped out.
That's the way it goes. Anyhow, Carl, I'm a landlord, and I've just found out that, are you allowed to garnish wages for renters?
In Pennsylvania, it is almost impossible to garnish a wage.
Is that right? Yes.
The only thing you can do is put it to a judgment and then have the sheriff execute the judgment. I think there is a provision, I believe, that allows a landlord-tenant to garnish a wage. But my practical advice is if they're behind on their rent, good luck collecting it. Because the moment you do get to the point where you're about to capture the asset, they simply file a Chapter 7 or 13 bankruptcy, usually 7 for a renter, and then all that work goes for naught. How much they owe you, Fred?
$4 or $5 grand.
Ooh, yeah. Did you get rid of them already?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The short answer, you want to do me a favor? Because I should know the answer to this a little better. And I used to say that you should never, you can't garnish a wage at all. But as I understand it, they changed something. The legislature did a little while back here, and you might be able to garnish on a landlord-tenant matter. So can you contact me off the air, Fred?
Yes, sir.
Do that. If you go to weekendappointment.com, my email's on there. Shoot me an email.
Okay.
And I'm going to have one of my guys look this up for you, and we'll get you an answer. And I'm not going to charge you for it.
Possibly something was changed in the law.
Yeah, I think there was, and that's why I don't want to charge you for it, because I need to know the answer to this. Then maybe I can make you some money.
Well, I'll be up if you can.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, Fred.
Bye-bye.
540-05. It sticks in my head that I always thought you couldn't, which I was right about, but then they changed that, and somebody kicked me in the butt and told me that, and I just haven't had a chance to nail it down. See, folks, half the time that's what we poor lawyers have to do. We kind of know what we're doing. We kind of have some ideas about your case. We kind of know what we should be doing, but the law is always changing, and so sometimes when somebody meets with me and they ask me a question, I give them the answer, and then I bill them for 2 hours worth of research, and then they ask me how come I billed them for 2 hours worth of research when I gave them the same answer the first time they met with me. I'm like, well, I'm doing our due diligence, buddy, because before we start filing paperwork, they're going to change it on us. There's a change for the positive if you're a landlord. I guess it's a change for the negative if you're a tenant. But, of course, if you're a tenant, you should still be paying your rent. Jim, you're on WHP 580 with attorney Carl Rominger. What's going on, Jim?
Hi, Carl. How are you?
Good.
Hey, while I was out of town, the sheriff has been trying to serve me civil papers. Am I under any obligation to go up to his office and make it easy for him?
No, you're not under any obligation to do that. Here's my thought on the matter, though. They will serve you eventually. I mean, they'll get you served eventually.
Okay.
If the sheriff can't do it, the lawyer will eventually do one of two things: or send a private process server after you, or go to the judge and say, basically, hey, we made a few efforts. The sheriff can't seem to get the guy. I just want to publish it in the newspaper. If that happens, you may never get the paperwork. You may never know what's going on, or maybe you already know why they're trying to serve you.
Yeah, I kind of do.
My general advice is it's better just to get it and deal with it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the easiest way to do is call the sheriff's office to let you come up and pick it up, or you can arrange for them to bring it out to you.
Okay, now it's probably been 2 weeks since I've talked. Since he came out a couple of times, and I missed him due to being out of town.
Uh-huh.
It's probably been a couple of weeks now.
Yeah, you just call up there; they'll know. And if they don't have it any longer, then hey, let the other side figure out how to get it to you. But you got to be careful because there's such a thing as service by publication, and I've done it before where I say, hey, judge, I went out and looked for this guy. Sheriff couldn't find him. We ran some addresses in this computer system. We sent certified mail to all that. It all came back unclaimed. And now I want to get this gal divorced or get my judgment. What am I going to do? And the judge says, okay, put it in the Sentinel in the legal journal in the legal section. I don't know about you, but nobody reads those things.
Yeah.
Not me. Not even lawyers. We don't read it either.
Okay.
All right.
All right, you've answered my question, Carl.
All right, thank you, sir.
Again, thank you much.
540-0580. I'm going to take some more calls here. By the way, I'm going to go out deer hunting after the show here, so there's not going to be a bonus hour today. We're not going to do the bonus podcast hour because I need to be in the woods before it's too dark because I need to see the deer so I can shoot them in still legal light. However, if anybody's got some deer in their backyard out there, or they know where there's one that's, I don't want them penned up or anything, but if you feel free to call in 540-050 and tell me where I'm supposed to drive the car after the show, and I'll divert from my usual hunting spot. Bill, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hello, Carl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I talked to you a couple of weeks ago about my truck, and you referred me to your brother about how I was in a bad accident. My truck was totaled.
And those guys owe you a receipt, right?
That is correct. How did you know that?
I knew that because I think my brother told me he's sending you one.
Yeah. In fact, I just called up day before yesterday, and he said it was in the mail. Now, here's my problem. I had a blow-in going in my truck.
Right.
What can I do? I got a letter from PennDOT saying that I had to surrender my license again. I have done everything. I've complied with everything.
Can you get me a copy of that letter?
What?
From PennDOT.
Oh, absolutely, I can.
All right, get that to me. What we'll do, I'll take care of PennDOT on that. Their problem is they don't have a good system for tracking this stuff.
See, the blow-and-go company I'm dealing with is out in Iowa.
Right.
And they told me when I get a receipt from your brother, then I've got to send it to them. I'll fax it to them.
And then they will re-notify PennDOT that you're in compliance.
That's correct.
That's correct. But what we do with the letter, in the meantime, what we do with the letter is and this is, so Bill, so everybody knows this, all PennDOT letters, you have 30 days to act on them. If you don't do anything in 30 days, it doesn't matter if PennDOT was in error or somebody sent them the wrong stuff or you could have fixed it. What we do, though, is we calendar that magic 30 days, and if PennDOT hasn't corrected it by then, we have something we can file to extend that deadline.
Oh, okay, great.
All right, Bill, get me that letter right away, brother.
I will do that. Do I have your address, or do I?
You want to? My office number is 241-6070. Got your pen? He's got his pen out, I'm sure. 241-6070. Okay, Bill?
Okay, great.
Thanks, man.
a lot. I appreciate that.
All right, bye.
Thank you.
Let's see. Yeah, we helped Bill out get rid of a junk car. Jim, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hey, enjoy the program every weekend when I get it.
Thank you.
My question is, someone I know, we're looking at some acreage. He was looking at some acreage, about 6 acres out here in the country. And he thought about getting a bunch of us guys together to go and purchase it, say like 7 or 8 guys, so we could have a place to ride the four-wheelers and stuff like that. My question is, I told him, I said, just sounds like the cons would outweigh the pros by the time you start divvying up everything and taxes and, okay, if you're going to deed it to your kid and, what happens with problems if there's a problem between one of the members and how do you tell them, all right, if they're causing a problem on the land, okay, you can't use it anymore because you're going to mess it up for the rest of us and all of us. And I'm just kind of curious from a legal standpoint, does it just sound like too big of a mess to even consider?
Actually, no. And why do I say that is we've done these things before, and it's a pretty standard type of agreement. But basically what we do usually is put you into like an LLC or other kind of limited liability entity, but usually an LLC, and then we make everybody a shareholder. But then we have an LLC agreement that says how your share can be transferred, under what circumstance it can be transferred. It can't go in the divorce, and if your ex-wife tries to get it, we get to buy her share out, and we have a method for valuation. And, oh, yeah, by the way, we all recognize that nobody's going to want to lump out a whole pile of money at once, so we also make it so we can buy you out over a 5-year period, an installment plan, blah, 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 blah. So it can all be done.
Where would I get more information about that?
You got to come see me or someone like me. Actually, the guy in my office who's best to do that to Eric David. But it's not something I would recommend you do on your own, only because it's a pretty comprehensive agreement, because guess what? We lawyers over the years have kind of had all the problems come in and out, so we kind of know. My joke is, the agreements get longer and longer as time goes on because there's always some unforeseen issue. But for the most part, we can handle 98.2% of everything that's going to come up.
If it was 7 or 8 parties, how much do you think legal fees might we be roughly looking at?
Well, you know what? The short answer is I think you're looking at legal fees around $1,500, give or take.
Okay.
Versus the overall transactional cost, it ain't too bad.
Fair enough. That gives me a little more information to pass along to the guys.
All right, man. I got to go to break.
Take care and thanks.
Bob, I'll be right with you. See you after the break. 540-0580. Hey, 540-0580. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. Just a little reminder, if you know where there's some deer, and I can hunt there, obviously. I need to be able to hunt there, but if you got some deer and you need me to come shoot them after the show here, you let me know. Bob, you're on with Carl Rominger.
Carl, I have a problem with a home improvement contractor. He came in and did some electrical work for me. He's a licensed electrician, and he completed it, and I didn't. He was in a rush to get out of the house, and I paid him his money and $180, and no receipt was offered. And I didn't care, as long as the work was done, but I didn't check up on it. And later I found out that the work was not done properly. 2 or 3 days later, I gave him calls for about 3 or 4 days in a row, and he never responded to my calls to come back and fix the problems that he didn't fix.
Right.
And he's supposed to, you're required to be registered with the Attorney General for home improvements if you do more than $5,000 work a year. And the research I found out is he's not registered with the Attorney General, but he is a corporation, and if I brought a small claim against him, would I be, and I lose, would I be responsible for paying fees to his attorney and all that stuff?
No. In fact, here in the United States, as a general proposition, unless your lawsuit is wholly frivolous, and even then, maybe not, you bear no risk of paying the other side's attorney's fees unless there's a specific statutory ground for it or there is a contract clause for it. But the long and short of it is, in most circumstances, each party bears their own legal cost.
And in this case, he won't respond to my calls. Now, it's been a couple of months since then. Is there a period of time that I have to...
You have 4 years to bring a breach of contract action.
Well, there's the only thing is a verbal contract.
Well, you have 4 years to bring that breach of contract. So once you realized, or should have realized, there was a breach, so the answer is don't sit on your hands for 3 years, because proving it's going to get really hard at that point.
6 months.
Yeah, you're fine to file.
Okay. There would be no repercussions if I lost the suit. Now, he has to, since he's a corporation, he has to be represented by an attorney.
That is correct. He cannot represent himself as a corporation.
Right. So, I'm figuring if I bring the suit, he may have cause to come back to me for this cost.
Right.
His legal cost. So, what I'm understanding is he's on his own with his own legal cost. If I filed a small claim suit with the district justice.
That is correct.
Okay, that just gives me some initiative to get moving on this then.
All right.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care, brother.
All right, bye.
540-0580, and I just got a little bump on Facebook from attorney Scott Harper, who tells me, yes, in fact, he has actually collected by garnishment for the landlords. So there you go. See, that's what's a nice thing about a big audience is you got a big collective brain out there that can help you out. So, in fact, he says he's actually done a few of those already, and points out that child support and landlord-tenant judgments for rent are the only things that can be garnished in Pennsylvania. Let's see here. Mike's next. Mike, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger.
Hi, Carl. I've been doing a lot of research and listening onto this foreclosure gate issue, and have concluded that there's a fairly good possibility that the company that has my mortgage probably can't produce the promissory note. And what I want to know is, can I go into court and file an action to demand that they present that or allow me to inspect the original note, and if not, seek an order to pay my mortgage into escrow until they can produce that note?
I don't know if there's such a cause of action. I understand what you're trying to say is I don't want to pay it, so I'm going to make them produce a note. I don't think courts get involved in hypothetical situations.
Well, it was just a case in New Jersey that has ruled that if they don't have the note, they're not legally allowed to be collecting your the mortgage payment anyway.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that. I mean, because here's the answer: if you just start sending me $700 a month, I'm just going to deposit it. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so the problem also becomes is when you make your last payment, they say, "Well, thank you."
Right.
And you don't get that note back, and another bank shows up with it, and they go, "Well, you didn't pay us."
Right. So, but here's my thought on the matter: is the safest way to do it would be simply just to start escrowing the money. And not paying your mortgage, and then when they sue you, say, produce the note.
Well, that's a little more risky.
Well, of course it is. And that's what I say. As a general rule, courts don't like to get involved in hypotheticals. And so it's really not an issue until somebody asserts that there's a note, and then you assert there isn't a note, or you don't have the note, you're not in privity. And so usually you can't go to a court ahead of time. Now, if you went to them and said, I want a copy of my note, and they refused to give it to you, could that create a cause of action? Well, I don't know. Maybe you could argue that the agreement in the original note, but of course, if you know what the original note says.
Well, you see, the problem is that the original note is like a bearer bond.
Right.
That's how they got into this trouble. Is they the young legal beagles that they thought they were from Harvard and Yale business school didn't understand that you can't photocopy that promissory note and have it be a binding document.
Right. I understand what you're saying. Now, it should be the actual thing should be transferred.
Right, and they didn't do it. They put it on this mirrors database and said, well, this is good enough. Well, now a lot of courts are saying, you're out of your mind. No, it isn't good enough. And they also didn't pay a lot of times transfer taxes to the counties and stuff that they were required to pay for actually doing a legal real estate transfer.
Yeah, my impression of the matter, too, was they were basically getting away with everything.
Fraud.
Until somebody finally said, no, wait a minute, let's look at the actual flow of the documents. And it almost looked like they were going to win that war for a while there, where they basically just said, okay, we're the mortgage company. Because a lot of judges and a lot of courts were simply rubber stamping the mortgage foreclosures.
Right.
Particularly in Florida and those areas.
Well, you know what brought them down? One of those banks got ready to go sell a bunch of the foreclosed properties, and they went before a title insurance company, and the title insurance company says, you're out of your mind. We're not going to insure any of this.
The underwriters for title, by the way, when people go, why do I get title insurance? I say, half the reason you want to get title insurance is because if an underwriter will approve it, you probably did get good title.
Right. I mean, it's a good test. But
it's a good test, yeah.
Yeah, but I've been seriously, if you think you can do this, I'd like to proceed with an action. Because I called my mortgage company and I said, well, I want to see my promissory note. And you'd be surprised at stuff they told me.
Yeah.
Well, you have to go back to the original guy who did it. And I said, I think he's dead. Oh.
Well, I understand you want a copy of your promissory note. The short answer...
I don't want a copy. I want to inspect it to see if it's the original.
And the interesting question is do they actually hold it? I mean, that's what you're basically saying is I want proof that you actually hold the note.
Yeah, because if they don't hold the note, I don't owe them anything.
Right. And then maybe the other guy's going to forgive you. Of course, remember, that'll create income and become a taxable situation.
Right.
Because debt forgiveness is income.
Right. Well, hey, I'd rather pay taxes than pay all that money.
The guy in my office, Eric David's the guy in my office who would best be able to help you fool around with this if you're serious about it. Although I'm not sure how much money you want to spend to play.
Well, it depends on how much money we're talking about. But I'm very serious because my big concern is that from what I'm hearing, from my research, 80% of the property in the United States right now, real estate, cannot get good title.
You're theoretically saying who's actually going to issue the satisfaction piece. And is it going to be a good satisfaction piece, and should the next buyer rely on it? Because as you and I know, when you buy real estate, you take it subject to those potential liens on it.
That's right.
Yep, understand, brother.
Yep.
All right, ask for Eric in my office. Tell him we talked.
Okay, I will.
All right, take care.
Yep, bye-bye.
Got to go to break, 540. Hey, 540-0580. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. And let me make sure I get everybody in order here. Patty, you've been holding patiently. What's going on? Patty.
Oh, yes. I have a question. In the last year, I've been pulled over twice by local police officers.
Okay.
One time for the little sticker in the back of my license plate was torn off. So they stopped me. Okay. The second time was I did do an illegal U-turn. Okay. But my question to you is, are they allowed to ask you all these questions when they pull you over? For example, the officer asked me, where are you coming from? Where do you live? How do you get to work? Where do you work? Have you ever been on this street before? Where are you going now? I mean, is that appropriate?
The short answer is he's allowed to ask whatever he wants. The long answer is you have the absolute right to remain silent and don't have to answer any of his questions.
Okay.
So now, of course, here's the funny part, right? What are you going to say to him? I mean, the short answer is you can, just say, I'm not answering any questions whatsoever. And maybe you get ticketed. Sometimes being, compliant is more likely to get you a warning. So you got to kind of do a totality of the circumstance thing. Okay, I was driving 93 miles an hour. I guess what I'm going to do is be as friendly as pie. And if he wants to ask me my mother's maiden name, maybe then I'll stop there and ask him if this is some kind of identity theft. But other than that, I'll probably answer any question he wants. On the other hand, if I'm going 62 in a 55, and I think he's just being a jerk for pulling me over, I might tell him, name, rank, and serial number. Now, you do have to give your name and your driver's license as a general rule, insurance information, that kind of thing. But he starts asking where you're coming from and where you're going. And if you watch my DUI video on Facebook, if you go to Facebook or you can go to weekendappointment.com and see a video of me pulled over on the roadside for a, quote, DUI stop, you can see how I answered the police officer, which was, no, I'm not answering your questions. And that led to them having to let me go. Now, I was sober, so a lot of people are like, oh, you're just going to, no, I'm sober. But the point is I'm not going to let them test me. And he didn't have probable cause because I didn't give it to him.
Okay. I just felt that some of the questions were inappropriate for the offense, if you will.
Right.
I mean, especially with that little tag on my license plate. Really, do you need to know where I live, where I'm going? Right there you have my license. But I'm kind of reluctant to be a little bit short with them Because I don't know, can they take me out of the car and search me? Can they do that stuff?
They can certainly ask you out of the car.
Okay.
Whether they can search you or not is a whole separate question, but they have to have a basis to do that. You don't have to consent to a search. However, I've caught the police in a lot of illegal searches over the years, so.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, Sharon.
I don't know what else to tell you, but, listen, and there's a lot of officers out there who do it by the book. In fact, they always get a chuckle out of the fact that when they ask a guy, like, can I look in your trunk of your car? And they say yes, and they find some marijuana or cocaine or whatever. And they're like, if the guy would just say no, I have to let him go. But they're like, nobody says no to us. They all think they have to say yes, or else I'm going to search it anyhow. And I'm like, I know.
That is very true, because you think that you just have to be extremely compliant or they're going to, rough you up or something.
Right. And the best part about not being compliant is, and if you do it respectfully, you can watch. My joke is that the more you invoke your rights and you do it in a way that's not aggressive but is still respectful, pretty soon you got 8 police officers there scratching their heads because they're trying to figure out which right can you actually invoke and how far can they go, and because that's not the typical situation. Most people either just are complete jerks to the police or very compliant. Very few people are respectful but invoke their rights, and more people should.
Right. I see. I will look at your video.
Yeah, take a look at it. Go to weekendappointment.com, or you can just friend me on Facebook.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay. Bye-bye.
540-0580. Josh is up next. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Carl. How you doing?
Good.
Hey, yesterday I was on 2nd Street in Harrisburg, got pulled over, and I got a speeding ticket.
Okay.
And I'm calling in because I know you always say, get a speeding ticket, always plead not guilty.
Correct.
I'm just wondering how I should go about this. I've never gotten a ticket. I've been driving for about 6 years, which I was kind of surprised, he even wrote me a ticket. I was thinking maybe I'd just get a warning, since, I'm not getting speeding tickets all the time. So I'm wondering, if I plead not guilty and request a trial, what do I want to tell a judge and or not tell a judge when I go in for the trial?
Well, the short answer is when you go in for the trial, if you were speeding and you would have to answer questions, like, for instance, if you look down your speedometer and you were 20 miles over the speed limit, if you take the stand or actually provide a defense in the sense of making yourself available to testify, then you're going to have to admit it because you can't lie to the judge. And the other side, if they're clever, just going to, after you testify, what are you going to say? Well, I was in the car. So you would not testify as a general rule, particularly if you're guilty. Even if you're not guilty, you might not testify. Usually in a speeding case, there's nothing you can really add. Instead, your defense is going to be based upon making them prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's going to have some technical aspects to it. Did they get the certifications they need for the equipment they use? Could the officer have seen what they claim they saw? Did they ask the court to take the right judicial notice of the right items? And these are all the things that obviously I get paid to do.
Right.
How fast over the speed limit did they claim you were going?
They said I was doing a 42 and a 25, which would be 17 over.
Yeah, so you want to get that bumped down. Your best bet is to go in there and just simply ask the officer to reduce the speed. There's other charges you could have it pled down to as well that wouldn't carry any points. Then your second line of defense is, if you don't succeed at the first hearing, is file the appeal and then go down to the courthouse and take someone like me along. I mean, if you're a CDL driver or you're just serious about keeping your record clean, you want to take the lawyer at the first available opportunity. You're looking at anywhere from $300 to $400 for an attorney to go with you.
Right. Now, another thing I was wondering, you said about trying to talk to the officer and get him to lower the violation.
Uh-huh.
Is that something I would do actually at the hearing? Or I was doing some research, and some people seem to think that try and meet with the officer before you would even go to the hearing and say, hey, is there any way you can lower this for me, or if I go to driving school, or I just want to wait till I go to the hearing?
It's all temperament of the individual officer. It's also tough to get a hold of them sometimes. But the short answer is, some officers appreciate you calling them ahead of the hearing. Other officers would be like, why don't you just wait till the hearing?
Right.
And so I don't know if there's a right answer on that. I sort of have in my head, depending on which police department I'm dealing with and which individual officer I'm dealing with, protocol for how I like to do it. The 2nd Street stops, the Harrisburg stops, the officers usually have a whole pile of them that they'll have stopped, so they'll have all the hearings on one day. So my thought on the matter is, if you can get hold of the officer ahead of time, great. If you can't, just show up. But that's probably not a bad idea to try to call them ahead of time, or even leave them a message just saying what you're trying to do. Just want to talk to you about the ticket. If there's any way I can reduce it, how many points on my license, would driving school be good? And even if they don't get back to you, they may remember that when you get to the hearing.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds good. That answers some of the questions I had.
All right. Good luck.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Bye.
540-0580. Henry.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Okay. I belong to a cemetery association, and several years ago, the utility company ran a line across the cemetery. Now, They do not have any poles on our property. Now, can they do that without a right-of-way?
They don't have a right-of-way through there.
No, sir.
And they didn't get a condemnation to do it.
Nope. They put as the one fellow the lineman told me at the time, or the guy in charge, I will put my lines where I please. Now, that just wasn't exactly his quote, but you get the idea.
Now, here's the next question.
Okay.
I almost want to think it's very hard to condemn land that's in a cemetery, too.
Yeah, I didn't even know you could run a line over a cemetery.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I remember seeing a case that said that land that was planned to be a cemetery, but wasn't even yet a cemetery, might be free from condemnation.
Yeah, well, this has been there about 100 years.
So, yeah, they might be in your airspace, and you might be able to get them booted out.
Yeah, well, we didn't mind the line so much, but they also came in and cut back a bunch of trees pretty severely.
You know what, though? Here's what I would do.
Okay.
This is just me thinking out loud, but I had some friends that did this one time. They got to look at it, and there was a power pole on their property that was not in the right-of-way.
Yeah.
And they went to the power company and said, well, you got to move that. But we know that the cost of moving is going to be about $20,000. So why don't you just give us 15 and it'll be 5,000 cheaper?
Okay.
A small cemetery or a big cemetery,
right.
Whatever. Free money's free money.
Yeah.
And if you're not that offended by the line, you might want to assert your technical right. And some people will call this, extortion. But it's not. It's your legal right to take it down. But you can certainly say, you know what, we can make an adjustment. By the way, let's have a little agreement that all trimming will be done with our approval.
Yeah, well, they put the trees up too close in the first place.
Right.
Because that saved them putting in another guy wire on a different property. So.
Well, Henry, if you guys want to go beat up on the power company, let me know. I'd be happy to help you.
Okay. Can you give? Now I realize this is an unfair question. Can you give me a ballpark figure what it would cost us per hour to have you do that?
Well, hourly rate, you're looking at around $200 an hour.
Okay, that's what I wondered. Okay.
All right, Henry.
All righty, good enough. Okay,
thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Interesting. I like those kinds of cases. Do I have to go to break here? I have to go to break. Sean, hold on. I'll take you right after the break here.
All right.
Welcome back. Yes, Shane, I cannot drive 55. Fortunately, the speed limit's 65. So it's not illegal anymore. 540-0580. Sean.
How you doing, Carl?
Good. What's going on?
Well, first of all, let me tell you, this is something that's happened in the past, but it's nagged at me ever since it happened, and I want your opinion of it. I one time, after too many drinks, got in an altercation and said, like as often as said, I'll kill that SO, whatever.
Right.
Well, it was overheard by people that took it maybe more serious than should have, and that next thing I knew, I was looking at a gang of about 10 police officers charging me. At which time I realized, whoa,
right.
It's a bad situation, and I stood with my hands out and said, hey, I'm not resisting, I'm not resisting arrest, whatever. Well, they gang tackled me, and in the process broke my hand and various other minor charges and all this sort of stuff. Then they took me to jail, and I told them who I was, but farther than that, I wanted to talk to a lawyer before I went any further.
Right.
Well, they woke the judge up, took me before the judge, and said, well, for being a smart aleck, he was going to charge me $15,000 bail and not like 10% or anything. You had to put up the full $15,000 bail. And on top of that, after the fact, when I wanted to go after the municipality for what I felt was abuse during a non-resistant arrest, and I had a doctor that said he would testify that I didn't punch anything, that it was crushed. My attorney said, well, I have to go before these guys every day. He says, I could refer you to somebody, but can't really represent you on that.
Well,
is that typical?
You know what? I should say, every once in a while I get a referral from another attorney because that's one of those attorneys who doesn't want to rock the boat. I don't want to rock the boat. I mean, I'd have to like kind of say, this police officer stepped over the line, or that, that this victim was lying, and I just don't want to, rock the boat. I'm the guy you go to, I guess, when I'll sink the boat. But anyhow, yeah, I've heard that attitude before, and that's such a poor attitude. I've heard other attorneys say, and they think they get great deals because, well, I'm real, I don't like to rock the boat, and I keep things down, and I get along to get along, and then I get good deals. And I'm like, you don't get good deals because of that. In fact, you get something up your tailpipe because of that. On the other hand, if you're known as a good litigator, you're known to know the law, and you're known to be a pretty straight shooter, but aggressive and going to do what you got to do to win, and more importantly, you're going to assert all your rights, and you're going to kind of know the law, you'll get much better deals. So,
that makes sense to me, and so I think my expensive lawyer was a jerk. I'm not saying there aren't times that maybe if somebody's criticized me being too aggressive, but hey, you know what? The answer is, I used to have to try a lot of cases because I'd walk into court and they'd give me some cockamamie plea offer, and I'd turn it down, and we'd go to trial. And guess what? Guess what would happen? The cockamamie, we'd do at least as good or better than the cockamamie plea offer. Mm-hmm. And after a couple of years of trying case after case after case, I can now walk into a trial term with 8 potential trials and be lucky if I get one. And you know why?
Because they know you're going to go for it.
They know I'm going to go for it. They know I know what I'm doing, and I've earned that. And when I start adding up the number of trials I have versus the number of trials that some other attorneys have, I go, this kind of tells me something. This guy has 5 trials, but he's been in practice 10 years. How does that happen? I have 100 trials, and I've been in practice, less than 15 years.
Yeah. How about the judge penalizing you for wanting to talk to a lawyer?
Terrible. You should have reported him to the Judicial Ethics Board for that.
Really?
Yeah, that's horrible. A good district justice would never punish you for that. Never.
And that's why, I told him who I was. I knew I had to do that and all, but I said, any details of what happened, I want to talk to my lawyer.
Yeah.
And he said I was being a smart aleck.
Yeah, no, that judge should first be punched and then second reported. Really, that is
got me into the trouble the first time.
yeah. That's why I said it. But no, the answer there is that's horrible. That's absolutely horrible. You cannot hold it against a person that they invoked the right to remain silent. Cannot be used against you at any stage of the proceeding by anybody, judges included.
You made me feel better because though it has passed, and I always kind of felt like I got it stuck to me, and at least now I know I was right.
Yeah, your instincts did not fail you. It's funny, when you're getting shafted, don't you?
Yeah.
All right, brother.
Thanks a lot.
Gina. Hey, Gina.
Hi. I have a question on foreclosure.
Yes.
I purchased land probably about 5 years ago, and it was I had a mortgage with it, which was a 5-year balloon. That came due. I went back to the bank because I wasn't ready to build. I wasn't in a position to build, so I asked them to extend it.
Uh-huh.
They came back to me with a ridiculous offer. They wanted me to put more money than they saw in my savings down on it, plus they were going to give me a 9% interest rate.
Right.
So I'm kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, and I guess I'm just trying to find out what are the ramifications. I know it's going to ruin my credit, but what's going to happen if they go ahead and they sell it, the residual amount that's due? Does that
they can they can hold a judgment against you for that difference.
Okay, so do they come back to if I own any other property or if I don't own property?
Correct. They could execute a judgment against you, against any other realty you own or personal to you own.
Okay, so that would actually go on my credit report that at any time I try to do something, I'd have to pay off whatever amount is owed.
Right. And if you're in a position where realistically you're not going to be able to pull out of it and you're going to need to do that, then what you might want to do is go to the bank and get a deed in lieu of foreclosure.
Okay, and what does that actually mean?
That means that you agree to deed the property over to the bank, but they agree not to actually foreclose against you and just mark the thing as satisfied and not hold a foreclosure or not hold a judgment against you for the difference.
Okay. Are there most banks willing to do that? Or?
Some are, some aren't. The other option is a bankruptcy type protection. So you have a few things available to you.
Okay.
The guy in my office that you'd want to talk to is Eric David. He'd probably be happy to negotiate that for you.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, Gina.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Dale, you're on WHP 580 with attorney Carl Rominger. Hey, Dale.
Oh, hey, Carl. Hey, you said something. I wanted to ask you. You said something on Bob Durgan's show the other day, and I was hoping to ask you to expand on it.
Okay.
It was something about grandparents' rights, interfering with parents' rights.
Yes, to the extent that grandparents' rights exist, the courts take a dim view of them if they trump parental rights in an ordinary circumstance.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure where you were going with that when you were talking the other day.
By the way, Dale, let me just throw this out there for everybody. I'm going to be filling in for Bob Durgan on the 23rd and the 24th and on the 31st as well, I believe, which is New Year's Eve. So I've got Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve, and the day before Christmas Eve, I'll be filling in for Bob Durgan. So anybody want to catch me on the Durgan show, those will be the days, 9 hours of radio joy.
Okay, I kind of hope they make this weekend appointment 3 hours at some point.
Well, you know what? Everybody write R.J. Harris a letter. Send R.J. Harris an email. Demand weekend appointment be expanded. Thanks, Dale.
Thanks. Bye.
That's what we need to do. We need to get the show longer so I can spend more of my Saturday here, Saturday afternoon in the middle of hunting season with no Pennsylvania deer and nobody calling in to tell me where the deer are. Why didn't nobody call in to tell me where the deer are, Shane? How am I going to find one? All right, here comes the music, folks. You can get me as your attorney if you need me. I've got a team of lawyers. We're all pretty good at what we do. We're all happy to help you. If you can't get a meeting with me, trust me, the guys that work with me are supervised by me, work with me, and they're pretty darn good, all of them. I'm very happy with the guys in the office. So go to weekendappointment.com to look us up. Be happy to represent you. Otherwise, I'll see you next week.